Good. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about like the general things because you guys can go research that and it's good. I feel like the thing that's not mentioned for teens are these two things, and they're very important. So the first one you've probably heard. So overprotection in the real world and underprotection online. I don't know if you've read the book The Anxious Generation. You've read that? Cool. Good. Okay. Anyone, if you did read it and did you like it? It was pretty good? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Very good. I think it was kind of long because it was talking about the same thing the whole time, but he like really pounds it into you that that social media is not good for teens, right? Unfortunately, our teens like it, right? I like it, like I scroll it, but like even knowing the science behind that it's not so good. And so we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about some of the teen-specific psychological needs that you guys don't have, and that your kids didn't used to have, but now as teens they do have, so they're important. Okay, so some statistics that are interesting. So anxiety prevalence over the last decade gone crazy high for adolescents, okay? And this isn't adolescents, this is undergraduates, but the same thing. Depression, anxiety, way high, right, over the last 10 years. What's interesting is there's a very strong correlation between daily social media use and those trends upward for anxiety and depression. Okay, and this for me is the crux. So we go up to screen time up, socializing and outdoor play down. Right, so they're not spending time with their friends in person, and they're not outside climbing trees and doing kid stuff. Right. And I think even teenagers need kid stuff, like that. So, yeah. Okay. So, let me see. I was hoping there would be some teens in here so that we could have someone. We have teens? All right. How are you good with push-ups? I was hoping we'd have like someone that was like, one of those teens that's just like works out every day.
Maybe like 10.
10 push-ups? All right. One of you want to do some push-ups? Yeah, let's see. All right, okay, all right. Let's see what your max is. Yeah, your max. Yeah. Yeah. Cheer on. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Good. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, she's doing good. 10, 11, 12. 13. Wow, you're even 14. 15. 16. I think you lied to me. 17. 18. 19. 20. Oh. 21. This is like the end of the class. 23. 24. 25. Yeah! Very good. Wait, stay up, sorry. Wait, stay up for a sec. Just a sec. Okay. All right, okay, so, what was that, 25, I think? 25? Amazing, that was really good. Okay, all right, so would you guys say that she is very strong? Yes. I would say that she's very strong. You might say that your teen's mental health is very strong, right? You might say that. I feel like most homeschool parents are really conscientious about helping their teens get strong mental health, right? However, social media has a bunch of things that are going to be hitting your teen, right? So I think of these as mental push-ups, so you see something about your body image and you're like, I can just ignore that, but that's like it's a push-up to ignore it, right? It's like the wealth. Why aren't you super wealthy? You don't have a relationship like this one, and you don't have, or like the oversimplified advice. It's just like your life could be better if you were doing these 3 things, and one of them you have to pay me for, or whatever. But so all of these things are things that you're going to find constantly on social media, right? And every one of them, that every time you see one, it's like you have to do a mental push-up to ignore it, right? Totally possible. A strong person can do a lot, right? Okay, let me see. So research shows that kids rate themselves as almost constantly online, right? So how many times do you see any of these things? If you were to scroll for an hour, how many of these things do you think you're going to see? All of them, probably many times over, right? So she did 25. I think you're going to see a lot more than 25 of these type of posts in an hour of scrolling, right? So how many push-ups could you do right now? All right, let's see how many you can do. right, Kate, you just saw a post that was about body image, and you're feeling like your body isn't good enough. So 1 push-up to ignore it. Okay, ready? Okay, good. All right, Kate, you just saw something on wealth. You're not wealthy enough. Push up. Okay, good. Okay, relationship content. So let's see what happens. Good.
Get it, I'm single.
Exactly. I think there was a button there, maybe. Okay. All right, okay, toxic positivity, go. I hate positivity. Okay, cyberbullying. Someone's mean to you online. All right, make sure you go all the way down. Oh, good. I think you're just going to do it all. Like, you're ruining my point. Okay, all right. Toxic hustle culture. Okay, you get something like that. Yeah, you see 3 of those. Oh, good. Okay, all right, last one. All right, so mental health glamorization. Have you guys seen that where it's like, I have ADHD or, I have autism, and they're kind of like celebrating it, and then there's an epidemic of everyone has it, even when they don't, so it's interesting. Okay, all right, go ahead. All right, let's do 3 for that one too. 1, 2, 3. Okay, maybe you'd be fine. All right, thank you. Good job. Okay. Yeah. But the point is, eventually you get tired, right? Eventually, even the strong people are not going to be able to just handle everything that they see, right? And they actually did a study where they showed girls a bunch of posts like the body image post. You just like super skinny girls, like unhealthily skinny girls, right? And they only showed those pictures for like a nanosecond. And they found that girls, even when they could tell you that those girls were unhealthy, their behavior still changed. They still ate less and they like starved themselves more and all those things, even if they could explain it to you that it was wrong. So a lot of it's just this: if you're seeing it, you're believing it and you're doing it. So yeah, so that's important. Okay, all right. So all of that was social media and how you shouldn't be. The teens are going to be healthier if they're not online all the time. So. Okay, the next thing is teen-specific needs. So teens need these things that most of us don't need to the extent that they need, right? So teens need to be taking risks, they need to be gaining independence and autonomy, and they need to find purpose in a group, okay? So they are, if they don't get these things, they're going to feel depressed and they're going to feel anxiety, and that's why I believe that these 3 things are the reason that we have the epidemic that we have today, along with the other wellness things I showed you earlier. So those are all important too. So risk-taking. What are some positive risks that you guys think teens could be taking or should be taking? Driving, yeah?
Participating in speech and debate.
Yes. I feel like there's like a story behind that. Okay, yeah. Getting a job, yeah, okay, interesting, very good. Yeah, and a lot of the kids that I mentor, their parents are afraid. They're afraid of, well, I can't let my kid go to the store because what if they get abducted, or I can't let them drive because they'll crash, and they probably will unless you like handle it right, But yeah, go ahead.
Probably start businesses.
Start businesses, yeah, I like it.
For my pre-driver, I had her take the bus too.
Yeah, right, and that's scary for everyone involved, but yeah, very good. Yeah, good, wonderful, that's awesome. Yeah, so research shows that these, there's another one? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Commenting and posting online.
Oh yeah, interesting. Because everyone can see it and then you can get that cyberbullying and things if you don't say the right things. Yeah, very good. Yeah, good. Okay, all right, so research shows that these things are really important for children and for teens. So they all kind of sound scary, right? So they need to be doing risky things with heights, high speed, dangerous tools, dangerous elements, rough and tumble play, and risk of getting lost. That's like, really scary stuff, right? But these aren't like, give them like a bonfire and they have to play with it. Like that's not like the kind of dangerous elements we're talking about. This. Who was that? No, this is like. when you're cooking with you're cooking and there's fire on the stove, that kind of thing, or you're cutting with a knife, or you're when you're doing like your carpentry stuff, you're going to have some tools and things, So it's really important for these kids to feel like they're testing their boundaries, and every little thing, a kid climbs a tree and they're like, wow, I'm really brave. And then the next, and they continue to grow that. I think that as kids are more online and their risks are all online instead of physical risks, they're becoming so risk averse that by the time they get to college, by the time they graduate from college, they can't go out to get a job or things because they're afraid. They're afraid of everything because their parents were afraid of everything for them, right? So it's really important for these kids to be doing things physically that are risky. Some other things is pushing beyond your current capacities and trying new things. So those are all ways that kids can have risk that's really important for them. Let's see. And I'll have references for this. There's some really good articles on all of this. Okay, so independence. Independence has two parts. First one, life skills. So your kids are smart, right? If you want your kids to feel confidence, then they have to be competent, right? So if you want your kids to feel like, if they want to feel like an adult, all of your kids are going to want to be adults, and they're going to want to not have to listen to you or do what you say because they are autonomous, right? But many of you won't like them to do those things because they're not skilled or mature enough to do a lot of those things, right? So things like run an errand alone, cook a meal, make an appointment. If your kids can learn these things in a healthy, good way and then start taking them over, then they'll have those life skills and they won't feel as incompetent and not confident, because it really is confidence equals competence, So I really think that's true. My mom had a motto that was like, if your kid can do it for themselves, then they should do it for themselves. And I felt like that was really good. I didn't think it in the moment, but I don't love doing my own laundry when you're 10, but it's good. Okay. Next thing, anti-fragile confidence. First part, who knows what anti-fragility means? Somebody know what that means? Yes.
It's the idea that there are certain parts of your body or your mind or whatever that actually benefit from opposition, basically.
Yeah,
and that
great.
Become stronger, our muscles become stronger by being worked out, by being torn and repaired, and that it's only through those oppositional things that we become stronger.
Perfect, yeah, that was really good. Yeah, so things like muscles and bones, if you don't work out and break down those things, then they don't get bigger, they don't get stronger, So your immune system, exposure to germs, viruses, and illnesses actually give your body immunity, So that's why you find a lot of Native American tribes and things that their kids are super immune because their kids are always outside and getting infected with things, and it's good for them. We live in a super sterile environment typically, and that makes it really hard for these kids to get the immunity, and that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, but in our minds, or as we just don't want the kids to have the same thing with their minds and with like the things that they're doing, right? So anti-fragile confidence is where you're doing things that stretch you, things that they're going to fail at. You want them to be failing constantly, and you want them to feel like that's a good thing, So for example, if you have a kid who loves chess, right? You have a kid who loves chess and he's beaten every other kid who comes against him. You're not going to send him more kids who he can beat. You're going to take him to a championship or something where eventually he's going to get beat, right? And he's going to feel like, oh, wow, this is another level for me to get to. And they're going to be feeling this confidence of, it's a good thing to be challenged in that way. You're going to grow confidence as it's challenged. Okay, so some things that you can do to help your kids with anti-fragile confidence. Let them struggle productively, so don't rescue too quickly. Ask questions instead of solving. So you could say, what could you try next? What's another way for you to think about this? I like doing this in my classroom. I like to give them like a problem, and then I say solve it, and then they'll come to me and ask questions and things, but instead of just be like, okay, well, first we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. Like, let them struggle with it, and if they can't figure it out, then I can help them. But now they're so invested in it because they tried and couldn't do it that they'll ask. Teens are always feeling like typically, teens are always feeling like they know all the answers, so give them something that, maybe they have to figure out they don't, and then they listen better, I find. So more exposure to risks. Let's see. Okay, last one, purpose in a group, social learning. So these are some things that are important for them as they are in a group, right? So responsibility, support, social roles. What's interesting about, social roles is interesting because a lot of times these kids are, like we've said, not to be bullying and things like this, but when a kid does something super annoying, another kid's going to tell them that's super annoying, and then the kid will stop doing that thing, But as adults, oftentimes we're so diplomatic, the kid doesn't know that it's super annoying, So it's actually really good for them to be around kids of their own age that can just be super upfront with them and help them to learn like what's socially acceptable and what's not. Rupture and repair. These kids, as kids are together, they're going to rupture their relationships, meaning that there's going to be conflict. Maybe they're playing a game and someone's like, you're cheating. And it's like, maybe they were, I don't know, but they're going to have this thing where they're going to have conflict, but then within 30 minutes, they're back to playing again. They have to figure out as a teen and as kids how to repair these relationships once you're ruptured. Otherwise, you get these adults who don't know how to repair relationships. They're not used to doing that. They don't know how to do that. And I think that we see that a lot in society because kids aren't allowed to have this free play where they're learning naturally how to do it. They always have someone step in and be like, okay, stop fighting, And that's great because you don't want the conflict. But the issue is when you step in, you're making it so that the kids can't learn how to solve that on their own. Okay, thank you. Okay, so they're going to get belonging. They're going to have positive role models. This one's really interesting. So when you have a teen, they're in this stage where they're going to stop listening to people at home as much. The research shows that that these kids, as they get into around 13, they're going to stop listening and caring so much about what the parents have to say. And that's a good thing. It means that they're trying to become autonomous, they're trying to become independent and a full adult, So as these kids, they won't, if they don't have this, if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't leave the nest, they wouldn't ever go out and do things, So we actually want to support them in being autonomous and not listening to us, It's actually those who are out, so they do listen about the same amount to friends and to people outside of the family. So if you can find somebody who has your same values and those kind of things outside the family who can step in and kind of take over, not the whole parenting thing because that's way too much, but if you can have them be around those people, get that, that positive role model, then that's very important because your kids will listen to them more than to you, even though that's really sad as the parent, so yeah. And then identity. You can't have identity in a vacuum. There's a lot of identity theories out there, and most of them talk about identity as a social thing. We create ourselves to fit social needs, and if your kids aren't around other kids and other people, then it's really difficult for them to really feel like they have a solid identity. So that's all very interesting. Let me see. So recap. Teen mental health is at an all-time low. We are overprotecting in the real world and underprotecting online. Your teens have 3 main needs: risk, independence, and purpose in a group. So some of the ways that you guys can do that. I really like the website letgrow.com. So this one's mostly for kids, but it's basically a list of here's some risky activities that your kid could do. They can get it signed off and kind of like help them to feel like they're being celebrated for these risks that they're taking, and it's pretty cool and it's safe. Another one is I'm working for I Create Collab. I'm teaching some of their skill building stuff during the summer. So this is a program I've created because I feel like kids need life skills. If they're going to have good positive mental health, they need to have the ability to do things that are hard, and they're feeling like they're constantly being taken care of, then they can't really feel that I'm capable, So, and then I do mentoring. So my organization, my nonprofit, is Warrior Mentoring, and I've been mentoring kids for like 10 years, and it's been really fun. I don't have the capacity to mentor everyone, but I think it's a very important thing. So if you can find another program too, where your kid can have somebody who listens to them and helps them to stretch themselves. I have a list for teens where it's like, go climb a tree, go say a compliment to a stranger, go do the grocery shopping for your mom, like those kind of things, because it's really important for them to get that whole like growing outside of the comfort zone kind of stuff. Okay, questions? What do you guys have? And these are references if you want to do any studies on your own. I think these are all very interesting, very fantastic articles. Yes?
I have a question as much as I just want to echo what you just said.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was in this parenting class where they said like 2, 3, 4-year-olds, they're learning all the skills, they're jumping, they're climbing, they're driving me crazy because they're into everything. They're separating physically. I'm not part of mom. I'm
Yeah.
not part of dad.
Yeah.
When they're 12, 13, 14, that age, they're separating from their parents emotionally, and they're doing the same things. They're driving you crazy. And how many times have you said, "Why are you acting like a 2-year-old?" They're doing it emotionally now.
That's very true. Interesting.
And
yeah.
that's why you were exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because they're separating emotionally.
Interesting.
That's why they don't
Yeah.
care what we think anymore.
Right. Interesting. I love that. Yeah, I love that. I'll have to look into that more. But they're very true. I like that. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts? Because I feel like what I want this to be is just more of. All right, let me see how much time do we have. 5 minutes? All right. For the rest of the time, I'd like it just to be a discussion. Like, what do you guys think could be helpful? Yeah.
There's another one that's free, summer life skills camp. It's
Okay. Cool.
under Kids Cook Real Food. Katie Kimball, kidscookrealfood.com.
Kids
It's
cook real
free
food.
for
I'll write that
week.
down.
Over 100 skills. Kids can do a challenge with it, and then they can put in for over $10,000 worth of prizes.
Wow. Dang. That's
to
very
do
cool.
it.
Yeah.
And you can buy the program. Like I use my MyTech High money.
Oh, wow.
It's
Nice.
$27 just to buy it, so you have it for life.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, what kind of things have they made?
Oh, you can do there's just tons and tons of life skills. It's tons
Oh, life
of,
skills.
I
Oh, so
mean,
not just cooking, but
functional, how to
Oh, yeah.
how to solve a Rubik's cube, how to anyway.
yeah.
tons of
Cool.
things.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on like the mental health or anything that we've referenced? Because I feel like it is really valuable. I guess I can share a little bit of my. Yeah. Go ahead, and then I'll go.
This might be difficult, but how do you preserve relationship while imposing limits?
Yeah.
Like you said about, screen time.
Yeah. Well, so it depends on the child, So like I was always very obedient, but my brothers weren't. but the issue is that I feel like they need to know why. Have you guys read The 4 Tendencies? Yeah, some of you. Very good. I think that is a very essential thing for parents to know is the 4 tendencies, because it explains what motivates your kid and what can help them to listen to you, basically. I'm a questioner, so if your kid's a questioner, they need to know why, and they need to know why explicitly. It's like this is the research on it, or things like that. That like this is why it's so very important. And then even if they don't agree, they might not agree still, but you are the parent, and I feel like having that relationship where I'm going to ask hard things of you. And you're going to ask hard things of me, because like as a parent, there's things that I'm going to struggle with. Actually, I'm going to go back to, where was I? Here. So celebrating or sharing your own failures, so you're going to share like, as a parent, I struggle with this thing. Please help me to do well in this. And then you can say, I've noticed that you struggle with this. Let me help you with that. As well. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we've found a lot of success with our kids who really have that drive for autonomy, right?
Yeah.
Teenagers, in working very collaboratively with them to problem solve around setting boundaries.
Yeah,
It's
right.
Like, well, here's how we feel about it as parents. These are our concerns.
Yeah.
Help us identify what are the right boundaries and solutions that we can all agree on.
Right, right.
Like
Yeah.
what should be the limits with your phone? What should
Right.
be the limits with your curfew? Whatever it is, so that we can all be in a place where we're on the same team instead
Yeah.
of oppositional.
I love it. Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And actually, that's a really good strategy for any communication that you have. Is like if you can turn the person that you're arguing with into your collaborator. You know, that's always much better. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
So the group situation,
Mm.
can they learn those things in a family, or does it need to be more of a peer group?
So research shows that it should be peer group. You know, I'd love to say that it's family, you know, because that would be easy, but it's not. It's they need to have friends outside. They need to have different clashing communities and structures of doing things, so that they can have those discussions of, oh, you do this thing differently. I wonder why. You know, kind of. You know, so if it's just all the same, then it's difficult for them to have those meaningful confrontations that they need to have. I think is a big part of it. But yeah, so the research shows that it's mostly friendships, peer groups.
And I mean, I guess because like, you know, the older they get, I think the more they need that. So does that just depend on the kid, like at what age they need, like?
Yeah, well, you can see, like,
lots of time
I have one kid that I'm teaching who's 14 and he's this tall, and another one who's this tall, you know, and it's and so your physical development mirrors closely your mental development, you know, because it's, you know, more testosterone and more, you know, it's like these things that make your body change is like physically changing your mind as well, you know, so yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for participating, especially you.